right there.
PQ Speed Shop here. Welcome back. We got a few things to work on the 73 Challenger today. I'll show you what we've done so far and what we're going to do next. So we did the upper cowl. I got it welded in on the bottom, but I have not welded in the top yet because we're going to attack this. I guess they call this the inner cowl hinge assembly. You can see it's pretty bad all the way around, and then the rocker panel. So the issue I have with this is that I did the driver's side, and the one panel, even though I took the measurements and everything, this hinge panel is a little off. So when I mounted the door, I have a little bit of a tight gap in there. So actually, this happens sometimes. I'm gonna have to go back and redo some of the work that I did earlier, but that's okay. So now that I know that, I've taken the measurements off of this side again. I drew it out into my little book, and what we'll do is we'll go back and fix the other side when we're done here. So I think how I'm going to attack this is I've already replaced one portion of the inner. This was the only part that needed to be done, so I butt welded a piece in the front of the inner rocker panel, and we're going to go ahead and replace the entire outer rocker panel because it's rusted through all the way down. I'm going to have to cut back this the quarter panel lap, so I'll drill out all the spot welds on this and pull that out. Then down here I am going to, instead of taking this piece out, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to butt weld this in right there at the edge. It's a pain in the ass. You got the old one, you got to take it out, and then you got to replace that. There's a little piece in there with your nuts, the nut part that welds to this. You got to do that on the new rocker panel piece. So if it doesn't look too bad once I get this off, what I'm going to do is butt weld that part in. That'll also help keep that angle that we want, because these panels aren't identical. You know, the flanges might be a little bigger or smaller, so you can't just butt it up there and expect it to fit. So you need to measure down, you know, several places throughout to find out where it's at. The other part that I finished is I got the last frame rail welded in. The measurements were spot on that, front and rear, so we're good shape. I tried to use this piece over here. I won't mention the manufacturer, but it did not fit. The frame rail was probably 3/4 of an inch short. So what ended up happening was I went ahead and ordered the AMD rail, got that in here. Couldn't return that as I bought that other piece back in 2021, and it took forever to get here. I thought I was going to save myself some time with the inner piece already welded in there, but the measurements are not the same as what came off of the car, and I wasn't real happy about some of the welds and stuff on that. I may still use some of the pieces off of it, but I'll have to blow them out and then move them over, because you can see where I ended up thinking I could make it fit. I went ahead and cut off some of the parts that were on it, but you can see there's no primer underneath where the pieces of metal came together or anything. It's just bare metal. So that wouldn't have lasted anyways, but it's a damn shame. But anyway, somebody else might be able to use it. Like I said, I didn't want to weld in a piece back here to make it fit, or try to strap it down and make it fit, because it didn't seem right. I had to, you know, clamp the new one, the AMD, but not as drastically as I would have had to done this one. So I do have this available. If somebody's interested in messing with it, let me know. I'm in Maryland, so I got this frame rail in, did all my measurements on there, got this front part of this upper cowl assembly welded in, and we're going to wait until we've done this piece. I got this upper hinge for the A-pillar, got that piece. So what we're probably going to do is cut that in right here, since I've already got the cowl in. So what I'll do is I'll butt it in right up in that area, and the back part of this isn't too bad. but this whole piece is rotted through here and it's rotted through in the back. So I'm going to replace that. This inner door frame area, there's a small spot down at the bottom. I'm going to end up having to patch in, but we're going to see it after we clean it out. So let's go ahead and start blowing this apart. I think what I'm going to do, and that's what I meant to say, is I'm going to try to drill out all of the spot welds and everything on this and just try to get the rocker panel out first. Leave this piece up. Everything's braced. Leave this piece up. Try to get that new rocker panel kind of fit in there. Maybe tacked in before I start attacking this other pieces. Plus we're going to leave this. This is staying. So I need to kind of cut this around. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started on this thing and see how it goes. All right, we got the rocker panel all mocked in at this point. Just sheet metal screwed in. We need to make a patch panel for here. Hang the door back on, check the gap at the bottom of the door. I don't want to make the same mistake I made on the other side. Then I'll go ahead and replace this upper cowl hinge panel and the top part of this A-pillar, this piece here. But I want to make sure that I got the rocker panel in the right place first. Then once we get that done, then we'll be able to put the main floor in, which will be nice. And then go on to the back, hang the quarter, do the front, get the inner, I just want to get everything kind of mocked up and sheet metal screwed in just to double check and make sure everything's okay before I weld it in for good. Make sure all my gaps are right. Like I said, I made a mistake on the other side that I got to go back and fix, so we'll be doing that at some point as well. But this is what I got so far. I got the door paste back on for fitment and door gap on the rocker panel. Now I measured the rocker panel gap on this and it's about 3/4 of an inch, so that's way too wide. Even at 40 feet away, that's way too high. From the factory, these Challengers, a lot of them had varying from 1/8 of an inch up to a 1/2 inch, but that's still too wide. So the rocker panel itself is placed in the proper position. Everything lines up, front and back. So how are we going to address this? Well, I think one of the issues is, this is a stamped piece of sheet metal. So the only thing I can think of is if we look here, we can kind of see, I don't know if you can see that, where the old rocker panel came up to. So we can see we're kind of low. But we're not low on where it meets. We're low here on this corner. So what I'm thinking is that this corner itself, and you can see, I don't know if you can see that from the video, but it doesn't seem very flat. It kind of is on an angle like this. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to need to take this off and somehow figure out a way to kind of bend this top portion a little bit straighter. But of course we have to be careful so that we don't throw it way off. I mean, we can do some muscling around, but for the most part, we need to get this kind of up. And I only need it to get up to where we got like an 1/8 of an inch gap. That'd be perfect. But we'll see how that is. 3/8, between 1/8 and 3/8, somewhere in that area is where I'd like to be. As I said earlier, I'm going to have to go back and address the other side because I put too much faith, and please don't do this. Don't put any faith into the panels. These are AMD panels, AMD rocker panels, but nothing's perfect. It's still stamped sheet metal, and you're going to have to work it somehow, some way. What I didn't have on the other side was the door. I didn't have the door to fit, and that's where I made my mistake. So the other side, I'm actually going to have to go back and blow it out a little bit in order to get it straightened out. But this currently is 3/4 of an inch of a gap at the bottom of the door, and I put the door back on to the exact same spot it was when I took it off, so I know we're off. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't angle that corner, get this piece a little flatter because it's touching here, and so I need to kind of roll this up So that's what we're going to address next. Let me go ahead and show you what I found here. So the one thing I noticed, you know, before I start bending on the rocker panel, I want to show you this. So I'm sitting here and I'm just trying to clean this up a little bit. Every time I pull it off, I'm doing a little bit of cleanup or whatever. Then eventually I will prime and paint back in here in order to protect it, because once that rocker panel's on, it's there for life. But as I'm grinding, I'm noticing something, and I'm just gonna put this up here. So as you're grinding, I don't know if you can notice that, you see the flex in it? Well, what does that tell you? Well, this is a flexible piece, right? So before you go hacking and cutting and doing all that stuff to the rocker panel, what I might do is just cut a relief cut in the back portion of it, because of where it wraps around. That way it gives it a little bit of give. But honestly, I think most of what we're going to get some adjustment out of is going to be right here. Because if you notice, if that corner's right here and you're able to turn this a little bit, guess what? You're closing your gap. So then all you have to do is worry about this here, and I'm feeling under there to see if there's any rough stuff under there that needs to be cleaned up, and I'll crawl under there and check for sure. Like I said, this markings right here, and that's why I left these on, is so I can get not just where the back bumps up to the wheelhouse, but also it leaves a residual mark where the former one was. And although that's not a measurement to go by 100%, because it will tweak a little bit, and if you had super wide gaps when you first got the car, or original, because they weren't real good with the gaps, you at least have a starting point. And that's what I used the last time. I used a starting point, and I was just below that, just shy of it, and I had that huge 3/4 of an inch gap between the bottom of the door and the rocker panel. But as I'm noticing this, you know, I don't have the floor pan in yet, because I put the frame rail in, and then I went ahead and I said, well, I'll go ahead and address this, and then I'll put the floor pan in. I might have put the floor pan in first, and if I had to go back and do it again, I might have done it that way. But the other problem is that I have to weld in those top pieces up there, and those attached to the inner rocker panel, which had to be replaced. It was rotted completely through, so I had to replace that inner rocker. So it's, as you're going through this thing, you have to kind of think in your mind what piece of sheet metal goes on top of what and where, and to get yourself an order of assembly. None of this stuff is exact science. I'm not a professional, you know, so it doesn't matter. But if I can do it, you can do it. And you know, so I'm looking at this now, and I'm seeing how flexing this thing is, and that tells me that I've got a lot more play. I mean, it doesn't flex over here. You see that? It don't flex over here. So if I can set this front point up high where it needs to be, kind of throw a sheet metal screw in there so it rotates just a little bit, and then pull in the gap. One, get it level, and pull in the gap so that we can close in the door there. You know, to use the measurements I took off the floor and kind of get a rough estimate to see if we're closing the gap any. And then even it up all the way across, and we'll try the door back on again. So let's get busy and do that. All right, so I started putting this back in, and if you can see here, we're still kind of on we need to roll this. Need to roll the whole thing over. So what I'm thinking of doing is either hooking underneath and pulling over, or I could pull across the top and kind of hope it would twist. But I think it's way better if I pull on the bottom. So I'm gonna use between the monkey and the stick and probably a ratchet strap and try to just get that to roll, because it's the same way up front if you see that. And I think if we close this gap and add some sheet metal screws on here, put the door back on, I think we're gonna get the right fit. So let's try it out. The combination of jacking up the bottom after I've attached the top, jacking up the bottom and lining up the other screw holes where I had them before. We see what we're lined up here, and also down the other side. So now I'm going to put the door back on, check the fit on the bottom and the clearance on the door, and if we're good to go there, then we'll take the door back off again Take the rocker panel back off again, prep it, and then we can put it back on, hopefully weld it. All right, we got the door back on again. I measured it this time, and we're a 1/2 inch, which is closer than it was, but it's not perfect. Now, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do after I show you this. So a 1/2 inch gap all the way along the bottom of the door till we get up to here, and then it's a little bit wider, not much. So what I think I'm going to do, since I don't have the floor in yet, what I think I'm going to do is once I get this, I may stop what I'm doing now and go ahead and put the floor in now that I got everything sheet metal screwed in. Put the floor in, and then on the bottom lip on both sides, because the other side was wide as well, what I think is happening is it's kind of bowing out in that middle section between this support on the jig and this support. It's kind of twisting a little bit. So what I think I want to do is put a porta power on the bottom on each spot once I get the floor in there, and push on the bottom to kind of help twist it, maybe pull on the top, and with a strap on the top, and then a porta power on the bottom, and kind of just try to twist this down. Or maybe I'm trying to figure out how else I could do it. Maybe put some pressure on the floor to bow these seat bolt connection, or the seat support parts there, the floor supports. Somehow bring those down. I think I can get just a hair out of this, especially up in the front here. If anybody has any ideas, please shout out and let me know. I've had this thing on and off 4 or 5 times. I mean, I'm showing a really tight gap up there. With, of course, the quarter's not on yet. I can move the hinge a little bit. We're a little wider at the top, but it is latched. These door skins are coming off, and I still have to do the hinge panel. So I'm not quite sure exactly how I'm going to tackle this, because like I said, I got everything sheet metal screwed in now. We're at a 1/2 inch, which isn't ideal, but for these challengers, it's not. I think that's a 1/2 inch. Yep, a 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch gap. I might be the best I'm going to get out of this thing. I just would like it to be uniform all the way down. You know, we can address it on the back end by putting, you know, once I change these door skins out, it's going to change everything, depending on how the door skins fit. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at now. I think I might be test fitting that floor piece in there, which means I got to take my support brace out that I put in for the hinge panel. Either that, or I swap the hinge panel out, take the door off, swap the hinge panel out, sheet metal screw all that together, put the floor in, try to adjust the gaps, the door on the other side. Yeah, well, it's something to think about. You know, these are the things that you go through, and it's what wrecks my brain every day when I'm working on this thing, is, you know, what I'm going to tackle next and how I'm going to address it. And I don't have all the answers. Like I said, I'm not a professional. This is my own project. I'd like to see it done. I mean, I ain't expecting some concourse restoration, because I want to drive it and I want to enjoy it. But it's the same. I don't want it to be where it only looks good from 40 feet away. So these are little things. You address them now, take a little pride in your work, and, you know, take the extra time to try to figure it out. Look, I messed up on the other side, and I'm going to have to redo it. And you might have to redo your project as well. It's just one of those things where just never give up on it. Don't cut any corners where you don't have to, but understand that I don't care what brand sheet metal it is, it's not always going to fit appropriately without tweaking it. So be prepared for that, and you go with it. This is not a factory built, and in a lot of cases it's going to be better than the factory built. But I appreciate you stopping by. That's where we're going to let off today. I got to get myself some food, something in my stomach, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks. Peace.